History is full of unsolved mysteries, disappearances, ancient puzzles, and cryptic artifacts that have baffled experts for centuries. How did the infamous Roanoke Colony vanish without a trace? What was the true purpose of the Antikythera Mechanism? And did King Richard III really suffer the brutal fate described in history books? For centuries, these enigmas left us scratching our heads until modern technology stepped in. Thanks to DNA analysis, ground-penetrating radar, and artificial intelligence, some of history's biggest mysteries have finally been cracked. Today, we're counting down the top 10 craziest historical mysteries solved by modern technology. Starting off at number 10, in 1845, two massive British ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, set sail for the Arctic, hoping to conquer the Northwest Passage, but they never returned. Led by Sir John Franklin, 129 men vanished into the icy unknown. No survivors, no messages, just whispers of ghost ships and frozen bodies. For over 170 years, the Franklin expedition was one of history's greatest mysteries. What happened to them? Where did the ships go? And why were sailors found with cut marks on their bones? Clues trickled in, skeletons scattered on King William Island, strange stories from the Inuit of starving men turning to cannibalism, but no ships were ever found. Then, in 2014, technology changed everything. Using sonar and Inuit knowledge, researchers found HMS Erebus, and 2 years later, HMS Terror, perfectly preserved on the ocean floor. Inside, time stood still. Dishes still stacked, beds untouched, even captains' journals, frozen in time. Scientists even used DNA to identify crew members and confirm what really happened. Trapped in the ice, low on food, desperate men tried to escape, but the Arctic is unforgiving. A mystery lost for centuries, solved by sonar, science, and indigenous knowledge. Who knows what other lost secrets are still hiding beneath the ice? What do you think? Should we keep searching for lost history? Coming up next at number 9, imagine a disease so terrifying it wiped out half of Europe in just a few years. The Black Death, one of the deadliest pandemics in human history. But where did it actually come from? For centuries, it was a mystery that baffled historians and scientists alike. Some blamed bad air, others thought it was a divine punishment, and some even pointed fingers at supernatural causes. But thanks to modern science, we finally cracked the case. Turns out, the Black Death's origins trace back to the remote mountains of Kyrgyzstan in the 1330s. But how do we know? Scientists studied ancient tombstones with inscriptions saying pestilence, right around the time the plague started. And then, using DNA from centuries-old skeletons, they found something shocking: traces of the deadly bacterium Yersinia pestis. This tiny killer spread from rats to fleas to humans and traveled the Silk Road, hitting Europe like a wrecking ball in 1347. It first hit Italy through trade ships, where infected rats and fleas were stowaways from hell. Within months, entire cities were decimated. People had no clue what was happening, and medieval doctors, wearing those creepy bird masks, were totally helpless. For centuries, the true origin was a mystery, but thanks to DNA sequencing and ancient grave research, we now know exactly where, when, and how the plague began. And the craziest part? The same Yersinia pestis strain still exists today. But don't worry, we've got antibiotics now. So next time you hear about the Black Death, just remember, it all started with a microscopic villain in the mountains of Asia. And thanks to science, we finally solved one of history's greatest mysteries. Next up at number 8, for centuries, the Shroud of Turin has baffled historians, scientists, and believers alike. Could this ancient cloth really be the burial shroud of Jesus Christ? Or was it one of history's greatest hoaxes? Well, thanks to modern technology, we finally have an answer. First, let's break it down. The Shroud of Turin is a 14-foot-long linen cloth that bears the eerie, ghostly image of a man who appears to have been crucified. Some claim it's Jesus himself. But here's the catch. No one could explain how the image got there. It's not painted, not drawn, and definitely not burned in. For decades, skeptics and believers went head-to-head. But in 1988, scientists put the shroud to the ultimate test, radiocarbon dating, and boom, shocking results. The cloth wasn't from the time of Jesus. It was from the Middle Ages, between 1260 and 1390 AD, meaning it was likely a medieval forgery. Back in the day, religious relics were big business. People would pay top dollar for anything tied to saints or holy figures. So was the Shroud of Turin just an elaborate money-making scheme? Well, maybe. But hold up. The mystery isn't over yet. Modern imaging analysis suggests the image was created through an unknown process, one that no medieval artist could have pulled off. Some researchers believe a chemical reaction or even a burst of light caused the imprint. So while we may know the shroud isn't from Jesus' time, we still don't know how it was made. So was it a holy miracle, a scientific phenomenon, or just a really clever medieval prank? The truth is, the Shroud of Turin remains one of history's most mind-blowing mysteries. Up next at number 7, imagine ruling Egypt as a teenager, then vanishing into history for over 3,000 years. That's the story of King Tutankhamun. But for centuries, one huge mystery remained. What did he really look like? For the longest time, we only had this, the famous golden mask. But let's be real, ancient Egyptians loved to glam things up. So was this really what the boy king looked like, or was there a shocking truth hidden beneath? In 1922, archaeologist Howard Carter uncovered Tut's tomb, one of the most famous discoveries ever. But when they opened his sarcophagus, his mummy was in terrible shape. Centuries of tomb robbers, bad preservation, and an accident during excavation left his face barely recognizable. The mystery deepened. Fast forward to modern technology. Scientists used CT scans and forensic reconstruction to digitally rebuild Tut's real face. And guess what? He looked nothing like his golden mask. Turns out, King Tut had a frail body, a clubfoot, and an overbite, likely due to royal inbreeding. His skull shape even hinted at severe health problems. So instead of a godlike ruler, he was a sickly young boy struggling to survive. So the next time you see Tut's legendary mask, remember, it's not just treasure, it's a cover-up. Thanks to science, we've finally uncovered the real face of Egypt's most famous pharaoh. Next up at number 6, deep in the Peruvian desert, lies one of history's greatest mysteries, the Nazca Lines. Giant ancient drawings of animals, geometric shapes, and even what looks like astronauts. But here's the kicker, you can only see them from the sky. For centuries, people were baffled. Who made these, and how? Some thought they were alien landing strips. Others believed they had mystical, supernatural meanings. But thanks to modern tech, like satellite imaging and AI analysis, we finally have answers. Researchers discovered the Nazca people created these massive designs over 2,000 years ago by removing the top layer of rocks to reveal lighter sand beneath. But why? Turns out the lines align with the movements of celestial bodies and were likely used for water rituals. Yep, ancient Peruvians were asking the gods for rain. No aliens, no magic, just brilliant ancient engineers. Still, the fact they made these without modern tools, that's next level genius. Halfway there. At number 5, for centuries, the ruins of Angkor in Cambodia were a mystery, a massive abandoned city hidden in the jungle. But why was it abandoned? And just how big was it? Angkor was the capital of the Khmer Empire, thriving from the 9th to the 15th century. At its peak, it was one of the largest cities in the world. But by the 1500s, it was gone. Some believed war wiped it out. Others thought it was a deadly plague. But no one really knew, until technology gave us answers. Enter LiDAR, laser scanning from planes that can see through dense jungle. In the 2010s, scientists used it to map Angkor, and what they found was insane. The city wasn't just big, it was mega. A vast network of highways, canals, and hidden temples buried under centuries of overgrowth. More importantly, the scans revealed something shocking, signs of extreme drought and sudden floods. Climate change, not war, likely forced Angkor's people to flee. A high-tech laser solved old mystery. Up next at number 4, for centuries, the final resting place of King Richard III was one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. The infamous English king, who died in 1485 at the Battle of Bosworth, was reportedly buried in a humble grave at Greyfriars Church in Leicester. But over time, the church vanished, and so did Richard's remains. Fast forward over 500 years, historians and archaeologists launched a wild search, using historical records, ground-penetrating radar, and DNA technology. Their target? A random parking lot in Leicester. Yep, a parking lot. In 2012, they unearthed a skeleton with a curved spine, just like Richard III, who was said to have had scoliosis. But here's where it gets crazy. DNA from the bones was matched to a living descendant of Richard's family. The results? A perfect match. Against all odds, technology solved a centuries-old mystery. Today, King Richard III finally rests in a grand tomb at Leicester Cathedral. Next up at number 3, for over 2,000 years, this strange hunk of corroded metal sat at the bottom of the Aegean Sea, holding a secret that would blow historians' minds. Tea was discovered in an ancient shipwreck by sponge divers in 1901. At first, people thought it was just a lump of bronze, but when scientists took a closer look, boom, gears, inscriptions, and impossibly advanced mechanics for something made in ancient Greece. The big mystery? What was it for? Was it an early computer? A navigation tool? A doomsday device? Okay, maybe not that last one. Fast forward a century, technology finally cracks the case. X-ray scans revealed the Antikythera Mechanism was an ancient astronomical calculator. It predicted solar eclipses, tracked the positions of planets, and even followed the Olympic Games schedule. Basically, it was a mechanical universe in a box. This thing was 1,500 years ahead of its time. Nothing this complex complex appeared again until the 14th century. So was this lost knowledge, or did the ancient Greeks have geniuses we still don't fully understand? Either way, mystery solved. Coming up next at number 2. In 1888, the streets of Whitechapel were gripped by fear. A mysterious killer lurked in the shadows, striking down victims and vanishing without a trace. He was given a chilling name, Jack the Ripper. For over a century, his identity remained one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. Dozens of theories, countless suspects, but no concrete proof. Until now, thanks to 21st century technology, scientists extracted DNA from a shawl found near one of the victims. The results? A match to a Polish barber named Aaron Kosminski, a prime suspect back in 1888 but never convicted. Kosminski was a mentally ill man who reportedly heard voices telling him to kill. Police suspected him, but without solid proof, he was never charged. Now, over 130 years later, forensic science may have finally unmasked the Ripper. From an unsolvable enigma to a case cracked by DNA, Jack the Ripper's reign of mystery might just be over. Or is there more to the story? At last but not least, one of the craziest historical mysteries ever, the lost colony of Roanoke. A group of 115 English settlers landed in 1587 on Roanoke Island, off the coast of what is now North Carolina. Their leader, John White, left for supplies, but when he returned 3 years later, the entire colony had vanished. No bodies, no signs of struggle, just a single word carved into a tree, Croatoan. For centuries, historians scratched their heads. Were they attacked? Did they starve? Were they abducted by aliens? Okay, maybe not aliens, but we finally have answers. Using ground-penetrating radar and advanced DNA analysis, researchers found evidence that the colonists likely split up and integrated with local Native American tribes, especially the Croatoan, now known as the Lumbee people. Artifacts from English settlers were discovered at native sites, proving they didn't just disappear, they adapted. So, after 400 years, the mystery isn't so mysterious anymore.